Welcome back to another session with Rumination News Network. Thank you so much for joining. I hope that you would like, share, and subscribe. And remember now that it's important to watch the videos as soon as the videos are published. People are telling me that they're not hearing from me because the YouTube notification system is not sending them the post notifications. Please visit my website every day, and I'm sure that you will see something very interesting to watch. Now, the title for my discussion this afternoon is Hurricane Melissa, Jamaica's Destruction, and the Push for Smart Cities. Is Jamaica's rebuild after Hurricane Melissa a setup for smart cities? Hurricane Melissa has devastated Jamaica. Homes, roads, and livelihoods have been destroyed across the island. But as the nation begins to rebuild, some are asking serious questions. Is this disaster being used to introduce smart cities and new digital systems? In this video, we break down the devastation left by Hurricane Melissa, how the recovery is being framed, and whether Jamaica's future will be rebuilt around foreign-backed technology projects or true local development. Please watch. Now, the topics that will be covered here is government's Melissa's destruction across Jamaica, government response and rebuilding plans, smart cities, digital ID, and the global agenda. What this means for the Caribbean's independence. Subscribe for more Caribbean and Latin American political analysis and breaking updates. Very important that you do that. Now, we by now know that Hurricane Melissa has passed through Jamaica as a Category 5 hurricane. The Gleaner's reporting and the Jamaica Observer that this hurricane has not been seen. This large hurricane has not been seen in Jamaica for 200 years, 2 centuries, that Jamaica has not witnessed such a catastrophic hurricane. And catastrophic is not describing what I've seen. It is of prophetic proportion, right? What we saw in, or what we're witnessing in St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland, Montego Bay. Yesterday, Fox News was in Montego Bay, I think at Catherine Hall. That was the name of the community in Montego Bay. And the citizens were very desperate. They were saying that they needed help. And you could see the mudslides, and they were looking all muddy and dirt all strewn over them, right? And they were crying for water, for basic things. They didn't have where to live, where to lie their heads. I think they decided to weather the storm thinking that they would have been spared. At least their homes would have been spared, but the waters went inside, and some had to climb to the highest level of their homes to ensure that the waters didn't reach them. It reminded me of what happened during the Hurricane Katrina in Louisiana. It reminded me of that. Now, we must remember that these natural disasters, and I'm not trying to be skeptical here, for some people and for the media, it's a way of scaring people and the doom and the gloom of climate change. We cannot forget that. In fact, yesterday I saw Neville Bell of TVJ interviewing this white American who had flown to the island. And he was not there with supplies. He was there to document the evolution of climate change, as it were, in Jamaica. You know, the fact that, and he was there before the hurricane landed. He knew it was going to land, and whomever is paying him, because he says that the documentary will be viewed after it's finished on Netflix and Amazon. So you know who is behind that right there and then. They're not doing these things for, well, the ordinary man can watch it on Netflix. So what do you call it? Netflix. I don't watch these things, or Amazon. However, the fact of the matter is that it's paid for, right? So it is corporate. It is money-making. And if you read the book, Disaster Capitalism by Naomi Klein, which I read years ago, could have been perhaps in 2008, thereabout. I read that book that was penned by her. And it was a very good book because it opened your eyes to see how disasters can be profitable, are profitable, and our corporate people use it as a means of, making billions. And Jamaicans have to be aware of that. And some of these things we are not aware of. We think that the Fox News and CNNs and the people who are there for humanitarian services. I know we thank them for highlighting some of the needs. Hopefully, people will see the need and locate these people to proffer some amount of assistance. But remember now that in Hurricane Katrina, right there on US soil, no, this is deemed to be the richest country in the world, the most powerful country in the world, and it could not have gotten assistance to the people on time. In fact, I had some of the students from Katrina when I was, a lecturer in the Department of Modern Languages and Literatures at Howard University, and they relate to me some of the things that happened behind the scenes that the media weren't reporting. I was able to listen to them, and some of the things that they disclosed to me were horrific. Understanding that sometimes, one of the students, my students told me that, at one point in time, there were helicopters flying over homes, and the people were there, and they were flying at low level, right, where they could see the people, they could hear them, and people were waving and screaming for help, and they would just pass over them. Okay, so we must understand that these people are not necessarily very sympathetic to your plight, but it clicks and it makes money, and they'll go with it, and they'll wear barefoot and all the things that they have to do. The guy was in the mud yesterday and, interviewing Jamaicans. And I'm not saying nay to that. And I'm not saying everyone. There might be someone there who has a heart and who is actually, sincere, genuine about what he or she is doing. But we must understand that they work for corporate media, and the corporate media is no different from Wall Street. Well, the people at Wall Street control them. Anyway, okay? So they're going to make monies from this natural disaster situation. Very important that we understand that. Now, as far as the smart cities are concerned, it was very interesting and eerily so that Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness did mention that St. Elizabeth, the southern part of Jamaica, was going to become a city. And I'm going to replay his words here on TVJ, documented because by him. Now, this is coming on a primetime news. So let me just share my screen with you and just give you what the newscaster is saying. Let me get this thing to and begin.
This time in St. Elizabeth. Speaking at the opening of the new KFC location in Black River today, Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness said, following advice from the Urban Development Corporation, UDC, the parish is the best option. Kelisha Williams has that story.
Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness used the opening of this KFC location in Black River, St. Elizabeth Saturday morning to announce what he has described as a big deal moment, not just for the parish, but for Jamaica.
But suffice to say that the area that we have been advised is the best area to do an entirely new city, and it is because all the requisite elements to create a new city exist here. And you don't want to create a city that replicates Montego Bay and replicates Kingston. You want to create something unique. And therefore, this parish, St. Elizabeth, would be where we would be looking to develop our new city.
While he did not name the specific town where the new city will be established, Dr. Holness indicated that for decades, Jamaica has not had any area that has been purposefully developed into a city. It must be noted that Kingston became a city after the earthquake destroyed Port Royal in 1692 and Montego Bay in 1981.
Maybe Spanish Town was the only purpose-built city. And I had tasked the UDC to identify the area that would be best suited for the development of the third city.
In going further, he explained that's the reason behind the government's push to improve the infrastructure in the parish.
You can now start to make sense of why it is that we are making certain massive investments in the parish, which would include the bypass, for Spur 3 to go down, and then the bypass to get to here, which will effectively bypass Santa Cruz. It will involve the development of South Coast tourism, because we have a product here that is really great.
In the meantime, the new
Okay, so we have heard from the Prime Minister's mouth that that is what he is going to do. Now, notice he said that, if you were listening carefully, that Kingston came into being because of the Port Royal devastation, the earthquake that devastated Port Royal in 1492. And afterwards, the city was moved from Port Royal, because the city was Port Royal. When the British captured the island, it was, I think, Spanish town under Spanish rule. And then the British, when they seized or captured the island in 1655, that Jamaica became, the capital city was relocated to Kingston. Okay. Now, the fact of the matter is, if you're making the connection, you'd see that after we've now had this Category 5 hurricane that some people are claiming could have been caused by, other circumstances which are not natural. I'm not going to get into that on this platform, okay? Because you know what happens on this platform. But that is the allegations, are some of the allegations out there, right? That they didn't hear much lightning, much thundering. Some people are suggesting that the birds had not gone into hiding, and the bees or whatever they were looking at, because, if it's not a natural occurrence, they're not going to go, because these things are programmed by God. He's the one who programs them, and they know what is happening. They're aligned with nature, so they can read nature. Can you imagine animals reading nature? They know when it's time, when the cold is, and they need to migrate to a warmer spot. And they know when the place, and sometimes it's thousands of miles away, and they return without any problem. It's amazing, nature, right? And what nature does, and the creatures that live and are aligned with what we call Mother Nature. And human beings are thinking that we are stronger, we're much more powerful than nature, which we are not. Which we could take a leaf out of the animals book to just submit to nature and to allow nature to run its course. However, having said that, for all intents and purposes, this was one of the most devastating tropical cyclones that we have ever witnessed in Jamaica. The devastation is unreal. It's almost like we're watching a movie. And I'm sure that the people who are going through this experience must wonder if they're in a nightmare, and when are they going to get out of this nightmare. I saw a community in Mandeville, in Manchester, in which a house, beautiful home, was just entirely engulfed in water, submerged in water. Okay? And that is what? That house has to be totally demolished and rebuilt, right? That is going to be a lot of money to do that. Lovely home, okay? But it's just to show us also how transitory life is. And the fact that at any given moment, when you're thinking, you're bragging that you have all of this and you have all of these material stuff, at any given moment, they can go, and your life also can go. Right now, the Gleaner is reporting that 19 people to date have died. Not, it could be more, because they're still searching. I'm sure family members are still searching for their loved ones. And there are people who might not be known, in terms of they don't have any family connections and so forth, who might not be recognized, could have been drowned. We don't know. But to date, they've counted so far 19 deaths from this catastrophic tropical cyclone. Okay? Now, the whole matter of smart cities is one which people have been, been on the news, in terms of developing cities in which you will just have, you don't have to drive, you will have everything right at your command. You can walk to the bank, you can walk to school, you can walk to hospitals. Everything will be conveniently outlaid for you but you will be surveilled. And hence the whole matter, if you're going to be surveilled, the need for digital IDs. Now, how cryptic could that be? How cryptic could the words of Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness be when he's suggesting before, at least 3 months before the hurricane, that Black River was St. Elizabeth rather, was chosen as the preferred location for a third city? Why not Portmore? Why not even St. Anne? Why not even St. Anne? When you go to the north coast of St. Anne and those massive piece of lands and all of that, I'm not saying no, St. Elizabeth is not beautiful and has its wonderful and would be a city. But the fact of the matter is it's way south. But they have their highways now, so I'm sure they will say that they can get there very quickly. Portmore is going to be ignored, at least. We thought that Portmore was on the track record of becoming the third city. Now it's St. Elizabeth. Why? Why St. Elizabeth? And the Black River area has been devastated by this hurricane. The question is, and ladies and gentlemen, and something that you have to think for yourself, has Black River and the St. Elizabeth Parish been chosen, okay, as the place, as the experimental smart city for Jamaica? Is that what they're suggesting? And all the investors are there, according to Dr. Andrew Holness. They're there, ready to, invest their huge sums of money. And they're not there to do it because they love you. They're there to make hundreds of billions of dollars if they can. Okay? Billions of dollars if they can. And notice that somebody wrote me in my WhatsApp yesterday that yes, there were lots of devastation in Jamaica, lots of destruction, but Jamaica will rebuild. And I asked him the question, rebuild in whose interest? Yeah, Jamaica will rebuild, but rebuild in whose interest? That is what we have to ask, all right? And I'm not here underestimating Jamaicans' resilience. But what I would like to say to us as Jamaicans, as we are now in the midst of this very catastrophic event, what about the economy? Are we buying the narrative now that the economy is great and we're a prosperous nation? Right? Now, where are the billions of dollars that we say were in the national reserves? Can't we use some of that money to rebuild? What's the sense of having it if the national reserves is not, there to help us in times of need, in times of desperation? Okay? Why were those people there without water yesterday? Why shouldn't the money be used to have gotten helicopters to fly? Jamaica's a small country, So if you had gotten a few helicopters and driven around, they have their drones now, all of these things, their technology is up, more modern, more sophisticated. So they could have, moved across the island and see where the needs are. The people should not be there just loitering and moving around, not knowing where they're going and not being able to eat and to drink something as basic as water. It is unacceptable based on this prosperity narrative that was spread during the election. And I'm not trying to be partisan here because I'm neither GLP nor PNP. I am just here to point out the holes in the arguments of our politicians. Now, this morning I woke up again and I read in the Jamaica Gleaner, Dr. Nigel Clark, sitting in his seat of being a house slave in Washington, okay? And saying that the IMF is ready to help Jamaica if we need the help. If, really now, Nigel Clark, if we need the help. Now, he sat atop an IMF, a very stringent, austere IMF agreement, in which he saw and he complicitly participated, and previous ministers of finance, in the wrecking of Jamaica's economy, okay, through the IMF, because that's what the IMF does. The IMF wrecks people's economies. And you're down there thinking that all you talk about, and Jamaicans talk about very petty stuff, you know when a white man comes down there, the men from Fox, who was telling people to vacate the island. Okay? These people, you can read them and you know what they're saying and you critique what they're saying. But you're not going to critique the IMF. That is, these people who are telling you to vacate the island are just telling you what these people tell them to say, Okay? And I wonder if you understand how the corporate media operate. These people who read the news in the United States are slaves. They might be getting their $1 million and they live nice lives and, and they're happy in their own way, but they are controlled. Their speech is controlled and they can't say, they dare not say anything that their corporate sponsors do not endorse. All right? So it's the people at the IMF and the World Bank and the European, all of these, the multilateral institutions that give them and pay them, okay, to say what they're saying. So when the IMF is there and you do not have even an inkling of perspicacity to discern that they're not there to help you, but to destroy your economy, you are playing an asinine game because they're not playing. And we have already given them most of what we ever had. So how are we going to survive? And they're now telling us, having stolen a lot of our money, they're telling us if we need the help, if Jamaica needs the help, having stolen billions of dollars out of even our NHT kitty, the IMF, having stolen, right, huge portions of money from the National Housing Trust in Jamaica, is telling people, if we are here, and I want to suggest here, and I hope you're listening to me because you don't listen. You're so much caught up in the nonsense that you're listening to from the Andres and because you love the gossips. That's what you do. You love the gossips. So you're around anything that is gossipy. You love. And that is going to be our downfall because we're not listening to sober, critical analysis or analyses. We love to hear nonsense and think that that is the news. And if you're not hearing gossip to you, you're not hearing news. And you flock in great numbers to listen to the gossips. Okay? But the IMF, if they should help us, is only going to increase the debt. They're not going to give you money. And they'll say grants and, and philanthropic, and they use all of these nice sounding words to catch you. But they are going to augment the debt. That is what they're after. And there was a news in the Gleaner about 2 weeks ago saying that we're on a fast track of lowering our debt or getting to the 60% of GDP benchmark. But what was there that was really strange is that when the time comes, we're going to be at 58% of GDP. Now, why would you want to go there? Why didn't you just say, okay, if we're on a fast track of accomplishing that 60% of GDP, we don't have to go not even 0.1 lower because Jamaicans can't afford it. Because we've already banned. So they're saying 58%. When that time comes, we're going to be at 58% of GDP. And it's going to be lower. These people are smart and they are conniving. All right? But the fact of the matter is that you are not smart. And that is why they're able to use you and to spit you out of their mouth. And then having stolen your money to come and say, if you need the help. And like a little slave boy in Washington, that's what Nigel Clark is saying. Right? But you respect him. You respect him because he was able to articulate in a conniving way, in subtle use of language, that the IMF is indeed something operating in your favor. Because only if your debt could go down, then we'll be able to rebuild and to live healthy and prosperous lives in Jamaica. All lies. All lies. And now we are going through the aftermath of Hurricane Melissa, and I don't know what's going to happen to Jamaica. Okay? But let's look at a few images from Sky News. They're saying that Hurricane Melissa before and after show destruction in Jamaica. So they're all there, the international media, to feed the public with what is happening in real Jamaica. And some of the images are really, really horrific, right? And I don't know if you can be proud of some of the images you're seeing. Okay. But the fact of the matter, it is what it is. And maybe they're reporting on another Haiti. I don't know. Maybe they see us as another Haiti. Okay.
Clear. Drone video shows how the 185-mile-an-hour winds have ripped roofs from buildings. Flooding, fallen trees and debris have made roads impassable. The eye of the storm made landfall on the southwest coast of the island, 75 miles from the capital, Kingston. Satellite photos taken before and after the hurricane show towns that are now barely recognizable. This is Black River, the capital of St. Elizabeth Parish, earlier this year. And then after the hurricane had whistled through, there is widespread damage. Houses and businesses without roofs, others collapsed. Here's another closer view of the town before the storm. The large white building is the covered market, now gone. The houses along the shoreline are badly damaged. They would have been battered by the storm surge from the sea. Video filmed by the local police reveals the devastation at ground level. Streets are buried by debris. And the St. John Anglican Church, one of the oldest in Jamaica, is now in ruins.
Wow.
Only its bell tower still stands.
Mm.
Further along the coast is the fishing village of White House, reduced to piles of rubble, the trees stripped of their leaves by the wind. The west of Jamaica is the country's breadbasket, important for growing food, but fields are underwater, flooded by up to a metre of rain that fell as the vast storm system passed overhead. Crops have been destroyed. On the northwest coast is the resort of Montego Bay. This is the port area. It's been flooded by the sea. The container terminal and oil storage tanks are surrounded by water. Now, it's estimated that 400,000 people in Jamaica have been affected by the hurricane, and the cost of the devastation is immense. Analysis by Enki Research puts the direct cost at £5.8 billion. That's more than a third of the Jamaica's GDP, a measure of its economic wealth. It will take months and international support to put Jamaica back on its feet.
Yes, so thank you so much for having listened to that. But we're seeing what he's saying. It's going to take years, if not billions. And we don't have that. So what they're going to invite now are the technocrats, those who believe in the smart cities and the re-engineering, the social and physical, I should say, re-engineering of our societies. And they're going to invite them to St. Elizabeth and Montego Bay, wherever the cities are damaged. But I think that the focus here is on St. Elizabeth, that green island, part of the island, and untouched part of the island is going to now be transformed into a major smart city, right? So nothing happens by coincidence, and I hope you're making the connection. And the moment it's talked about Black River, when I saw, even before I watched these videos, I made the connection. I recalled Dr. Andrew Holness talking about converting St. Elizabeth into a city, right? They talk and you listen to them. And then when things happen, you've got to make the connection. You have to stay on top of things, got to stay on top of what is happening in the world. And our leaders, for the most part, don't act and don't speak out of mere coincidence. It is because it is designed that way. It is to happen that way. All right? And that is what you have to understand. They are engineers of words. And you've got to make the connections. You've got to connect the dots. Very important that you do that. Okay? Now, this is where we are. The IMF is going to jump in. Thankfully, Trinidad and Tobago, they have their supplies going to Jamaica. Hopefully, Jamaicans will receive them, the ones who are in need. And our politicians, the Dr. Tuftons and the people, will not make a business out of the generosity that they will be receiving. Because our politicians are not very honest people, you know? And we've got to learn to come to grips with these things. Not honest men and women, for the most part. Okay? So this is what I wanted to bring to your attention, ladies and gentlemen. And I pray that people who are suffering, that they will be helped, assistance will be given forthwith in a timely fashion, because time is running out and we don't want to have people dying of starvation. But if the example, what we saw, what happened in other areas, even in Puerto Rico some years ago after Maria, and the fact that the United States did not really help them in the way they could have been helped. Okay? So this is my analysis. I'm going to have a live on this. I'm going to develop more on it with Fred Corbin on Sunday, but it's not going to be on this channel. It's going to be on the Andrew Tucker Report channel. The Andrew Tucker Report channel. That is what I'm going to air it on. The live about Hurricane Melissa, smart cities, and digital ID. So join me there, will you, on Sunday? On Sunday on this channel at 4 p.m. Well, on the Andrew Tucker Report, that live will be aired. Will be live. It will be aired at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That would be 11 a.m. Jamaica's time. So please go there and please come and join the program so we can have a healthy conversation. Particularly those in the diaspora, because many Jamaicans are out of electricity. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to join that program, that live. Also at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on that same day, Mr. Gerald Pereira, Mr. David Ned, I think it's David or Davidson Ned of Grenada, and Mr. Fred Corbin of Barbados will be joining us for a conversation on the betrayal of the Caribbean, Grenada then, Venezuela next. Okay? Are we betraying Venezuela as a Caribbean region? Or as, Jamaica, Dominica, and Barbados did to Grenada in 1983? We have to ask ourselves these critical questions. And are our leaders on the whole betraying us as a population? So this is a very, very interesting conversation that Fred and Gerald Pereira, and I think his David Ned will be engaged in. Come join that conversation on this channel, Rumination News Network, for a scintillating and a vivacious commentary and debate. See you then. Have a great weekend. And if you want me to do more analysis on Melissa, just say more analysis in the chat and I will do it. It's my joy. Also, I have on the Andrew Tucker Report at least 4 commentaries on Melissa, which you haven't watched. So go over to the Andrew Tucker Report channel on YouTube and like, share, and subscribe all the videos that I've published on this rather destructive tropical cyclone. See you in another one. Adios. Hasta luego.